Warm greetings. Welcome to Wednesdays for Water. We are a citizens collective aiming to walk and talk water. We try to meet every week and connect people with various water worries and wisdoms. And in the process, we wish to curate future water warriors. The way we talk about trivial things for hours, water too needs walking and talking to address the rising water distresses. The way Wednesdays for Water is conceptualized as a prime time show, it wishes to make water everybody's business. The idea of the series was conceptualized in August 2020, and by the end of the year, the team and the structure was pretty much in shape. We started in April 2021 with Dr. Rajendra Singh's inaugural speech. We wish to bring science and society together, and therefore we try to bring in every session either a policymaker or practitioner and a researcher or academician. We also think that future generation is crucial and therefore they have presence in each session. We are going stronger with every week now with session on either quiz, couple of weeks of hard talks and a week of soft session of art and music. There is a simple structure for each session of quiz, hard session and soft session which are moderated by the core team member. Here is a glimpse of what we call as hard sessions and soft sessions. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of Wednesdays for Water. On behalf of the Wednesdays for Water team and the partnering organizations, Terry School of Advanced Studies, TIS Hyderabad, Fluxgen Engineering Technologies, Bengaluru, Counterview, Wiki Water Resource Council, and my own organization, Environmental Design Consultants, Ahmedabad. May I welcome all of you to today's discussion on moral, spiritual, traditional values of water. As many of you know, that Wednesdays for Water was instituted as a citizens collective with the aim to walk and talk water worries and wisdoms towards making water everybody's business. The objective is to engage in conversations with practitioners, policymakers, researchers, academicians, and youth to explore the interlinked and the complex social ecological systems which are basically surround water systems. The expected output or outcome from Wednesdays for Water is to learn and to understand harnessing this complexity than seeking some linear solutions which we have been trying so far. We also really hope to improve the water literacy in the society because water is not really taught holistically so far. So this is something which we started last year in April, and we are very happy to inform you that we complete with this session today 10 months of running this series for every Wednesday at 5 p.m. The today's session is on moral, spiritual, traditional values of water. And I guess I don't need to endorse this fact again that it is extremely crucial to understand these values if we really want to understand the problems and then to find some bearings towards finding solutions for the future. So if we are talking about finding solutions for the future, we have to really look also into the past and really find where our moral, spiritual, and traditional values hold and where we are also tied up with that. Because the values of water is explicitly as well as implicitly embodied in our living, and where the functional aspects are actually overweighing the moral, spiritual, and traditional values. And this is where we thought that we will really get this part of water factor into our Wednesdays for Water so that we can dig more into it and get a better understanding and see how we actually look at the functional value and particularly our perception about it and our perception and performance towards it so that we can really do better in that. So if we are more driven in certain direction, how can we really steer it more towards a sustainable path? I mean, in simpler forms. So we have two renowned academicians and thinkers with us, Professor Joy Sain from IIT Kharagpur and Professor S.M. Akhtar to enlighten us. And Professor Akhtar is from Jamia Millia University in New Delhi. So what I'm going to do quickly, give a very brief introduction of Joy Sain sir, because he's going to start the conversation today. And we sorry, we also have Gokul from Central University, Rajasthan, as our young discussant with his bunch of questions, and he's also quite excited about it. So I'm also going to do his introduction when he joins the conversation here. So Professor Joycin is at the Department of Architecture and Regional Planning at the IIT Kharagpur. He has extensive work, and I'm going to put the bio in the chat box, but his research areas are mainly focused around community and regional planning analysis, programming, and architectural planning related to heritage studies and documentation. He has a very long experience with all kinds of environmental and design programs. He has worked with some most prestigious institutions in the country, written a lot. He's been cited a lot, and he's in the committee of many, many important organizations in the country as well as around the world. So I'll keep it short here, and so that we can have more time to hear them. And I welcome all three of you here today, and we would like to start with Joycin sir. And as a protocol which we have been taking in Wednesdays for Water, I will start with a naive question and hand over the floor to you, Joy sir. And the question is right there, that if we are so functionally driven, how can we bring upon these moral, traditional, and even historical values so that even the functions can be redefined? So thank you once again, Joy sir, and over to you. And we are very eager to hear from you.
Yeah, so I think if I can get a chance to share my
Sure.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Manseji. Thank you so much, because I am coexisting with Professor S.M. Akhtar, a very renowned scholar, academician, and also a practitioner. And I hope there'll be a few others who are listening to us. So I think I'll just share my screen, which is a very short presentation on the moral, spiritual, and the traditional values of water. So is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think I'll just minimize it. Let me do a little bit of it.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll keep it very short and brief. And I think because Professor Akhtar is speaking after me, and he'll be a more pragmatic, more rooted, more grass-rooted, and very practical with regard to the current solutions, based on his vast experience and everything. So I'm going to use some of the constructs and precepts which I think is very, very important, which I think is very, very important for understanding the values of water. So water is an object which everybody knows. Water runs with civilization. Civilization runs with water. Water runs with human forms. It starts with birth. It goes up to the grave point. So it starts with the origin and the departure of things. There are certain slides which will explain. So what I'm doing today is to explain the gaps and the dichotomies which exist currently in the modern world, in the name of modernity, in the name of progress, in the name of civilization, in the name of advances, growth, and development. We have actually progressed a lot. In the last 150 years, there has been unprecedented development of material science and technology. What Manseji was saying, the functional aspects of the civilization. And we have reached a point when we are able to communicate with each other at the flash of a second, which is flow, where we are able to talk with each other, which is a flow, and we are able to share with each other. But we have also tipped at a crisis point, and we have tipped at a crisis point, and that tip brings us to one of the largest crises that looms our planet, which is the conceptions and the perceptions and the constructs of use and usability of water itself. Because water is life, life is water. Water stands for nutrition, the fundamental nutrition. Water also stands for wisdom. Water stands for all the values that we have in our life. It starts right at the cradle and goes up to the grave. And it goes beyond the grave and comes back to the cradle, what we call cycles of water or hydrological cycles. So with this background, I'll normally be sharing the start of 4 5 slides, which I normally use in a lot of presentations, uh, which talks about the crisis of water. It's not the crisis with water. There's a lot of water in the planet. There's a huge water reserve in our oceans, but we are not able to use most of it because it's not edible water, it's not drinkable water, it's not potable water, it's not water which we can directly use in our diurnal household activities. So we have a crisis, we really have a crisis. And the crisis has actually been triggered by the advances in science and technology, which has looked at development as a paradigm of a humanity versus nature, which Professor Akhtar was just saying 5 minutes back. There's a reductionist scientific paradigm which has made a huge gap between the human use of water and then the way we look at water in nature itself. So that's really an unfortunate thing. And we have broadly four major premises of problems, issues, huge gaps, disorders, entropy, whatever you call it, which is socio-cultural, climatic, geopolitical, and economic. If I start the other way with economic, geopolitical, climatic, and socio-cultural, economically we have not been doing fine. The gaps between the very rich and the very poor is yawning, with every day, despite our talks on affordability. So, to affordable solutions of water is actually a huge thing. If you look at this small picture, there are about hundreds of those waiting in the fringes of the city or a village for a little tap with a gush of water. And at the same time, there's some people in some poshest portions of the city who has about 5 or 6 bathrooms, and they're all running with hot and cold and lukewarm water. And there are all sorts of gadgets and utilities to actually support them. So there's a huge problem of affordability. The next problem is geopolitical, because we have been wasting so much of money. Right now, if you look at the world, the whole world is almost at the edge of a third world war, and the East and the West are about to confront each other. I'm not naming countries, but it's so geopolitical. And in that crisis, if you go in much detail, you'll find water is handled in a very bad way. The way we divide our regions, the way we deal with water. I'll come to that in detail in the next 4 5 slides. And the third premise is climatic, which is the huge imbalance that we have in our rain cycles, the hydrological cycles. Rain is coming to regions where it's not supposed to come for more than 2 or 3 or 4 times. It's coming about 40 or 50 times. Portions of the planet which are flooded, and the portions of our blue planet which are having absolutely dearth of water. So there are huge imbalances. And the final thing is our attitude. There is a because we think we have progressed so much materialistically that our arrogance, that our ego has been inflated by science and technology. This is a huge problem. We think we have been able to exploit nature and we are the boss of nature. That's a problem. So there is a human nature divide. Instead, the ancient spiritual view is that nature is actually an extension of the human beings, and the human beings are the extension of nature. That's a ancient parable of the microcosm and the macrocosm. Both belong to each other. So our science and technology has been mostly driven by a Cartesian reductionist paradigm, which has led the planet to the tip of disaster, to the tip of disaster. So let's look at these 4 points a little more in detail, and we'll come to know. The first one is economic. So we have a lot of water, and this is Jose Stiglitz, one of the greatest economists of modern time, and he has talked about the huge imbalances which exist between population, which will have access to water, and the population uh, supply that should come back to the population itself in terms of fresh water. You know, fresh water or potable water or drinkable water or industrial water are roughly the four different uses that we are used to. But they have become a problem of affordability, and about top 5% has about 40 access to the global wealth compared to the 0.5% to the remaining 95% to just 30%. And this is a huge imbalance, and this imbalance leads to the infrastructural maldistribution, of which water is a huge problem. I mean, access to water in general and access to pure drinkable water in general, even the water which comes in to the hospital, of a certain pH value is extremely important. And the hospital to run with good water has to spend a lot of money after good water, like brine water, acidated water, alkaline water, water that is used in operations, water that is used in cleaning of OTs, operation theaters. There are different kinds of water. You can't use the same water that you use for cleaning the streets. So there are different shades of water which are becoming unaffordable. That's crisis number one. The second crisis is geopolitical, and because of countries are divided, look at India. We had an undivided subcontinent for thousands of years. We had no conceptions of which one was India, which one was Pakistan, which one was Bangladesh, which one was Myanmar or Burma about more than 100 years back or 150 years back. It was an undivided South Asia with and with our connections with Afghanistan and Persia, which is Iran on the Western front, and then the rest of Southeast Asia. And the entire subcontinent was flanked by two major perennial river resources coming from behind the Himalayas, which is the Indus and the Brahmaputra, and the other river coming from below the Himalayas, which is the Ganga. So when the British had left India, the first thing that they did to our country is to divide the country based on the water resources. So India was divided on the west based on water and water based resources and water based planning and management. And India was also divided on the east with regard to another source of water, which is Ganges and Brahmaputra. So at 1947, our country got divided based on water and water-driven resources. Even today, about 45 to 50% of India's population are still concentrated along waterfronts, river valleys, just not Ganga, Sindhu, Indus, and Brahmaputra, but also Kaveri, Narmada, Godavari, and other rivers in the south. But when it comes to geopolitics, it has got no relationship with water. So, and there was a group of people in India who was actually partners to this partnership. So they just wanted some advantage, which Professor Akhtar was saying, because they wanted to start a new India, a money-making mission, a new forum. So they had the least importance for village, for farm economy, for distribution of resources, for water, for shared economy across regions. What you call India and Pakistan, what you call West Bengal and East Bengal these days. We fight over water. The countries in South Asia are fighting over water. So water, which was actually a shared resources, has been transformed to a resource for fighting. So water was a symbol of symbiosis. Water was a symbol of living together. So the entire symbol of living together has been transformed to a symbol of fighting with each other. That is civilization, and that is a progress that we are making. And this crisis is everywhere. This is in Volga, this is in Bulgaria, this is with the river Danube. This is in Amazon, in Latin America, and so on and so on. So this is a huge geopolitical problem that really looms our civilization. And the bottom line, the underbelly of development is actually profit making. It's absolutely profit making. So the values of water is absolutely polluted. So this is a mental pollution. This is a mental pollution driven by geopolitics. So the values of water is absolutely polluted by the geopolitics of global, international, and intranational and cross-national policies. So countries, the people of the countries are actually falling apart. So this is the second problem. The third problem is climatic. It's and ecological. By climate we mean the macroclimate, and by ecology we mean the flora, the fauna, the greenery, the farmlands, the people, the animals, the butterflies, all staying around water bodies, around infiltration canals and everything. So you look at a person who made this movie about 35 years back, The Inconvenient Truth. And when he had made this movie, He said one of the largest disasters of the planet in the coming decades will be around water, with water. People will be fighting over water. Today, you look at the world, he's absolutely predicted about what he said. I read his books when I was a student in the United States doing my master's. He's basically an environmentalist, and later he became a US vice president. This is Al Gore. And he said, if you don't handle our planet, if we don't handle the hydrological cycle of our planet, it's going to it's going to be self-destructive. We are going to destroy all our watersheds. We are going to destroy all our aquifers, and we are going to destroy all the networks that remain in the underbelly of our population. Over under the superstructure of cities and regions is actually the underbelly of the geohydrological cycles. And one of the huge problems of urbanization today is eutrophication. Everybody knows what is eutrophication because of a constant interface with pristine, pure water bodies. We are constantly discharging more into the water bodies. So we are discharging our waste. We are not discharging our love. We are discharging our contempt over nature. We are not discharging our care for nature. We are discharging our pollutants into the water bodies. We are not discharging our love for the water bodies. So that's eutrophication. And biochemically and physically, the water finally churns out to be black. The pH value, the biological oxygen demand and the chemical oxygen demand, the the affordable scale shifts, and water becomes absolutely a polluting environment. The same element of design of nature, which is actually a symbol of immortality, becomes a symbol of mortality, because water gives rise to enteric diseases, waterborne diseases, mosquitoes, different kinds of water related digestive problems and digestion problems are looming world over. The slums, the squatters, the jhopris of Kolkata, the jhopris of Mumbai, we call this civilization. Just uh, half a kilometer away, you have skyscrapers, and half a kilometer this way, you have jhopris and slums. And they are existing around what in Bengali, I am from Bengal, we call Khal Park. Khal means a canal. So the poorest people of the city are along the canals of the city. And why they're in that city? Because they're surviving as drivers and maids and cleaners to serve rich people like us, or even richer people than what we are, and far richer people than what we are. So that is a symbiosis of that relationship in which water takes a back end. It takes a back end. So eutrophication, the destruction of water bodies, the destruction of immortal green symbiotic water bodies to absolutely polluting uh, water fields is one of the largest entropies or chaos that our civilization has created. So this is absolutely a disaster. I'll come to the fourth and the final point, and this is in the words of Maslow, one of the greatest thinkers of the modern times. And this is where we have actually lost our mind. We have lost our presence of mind. We have lost our time. We really don't know what we are going to do. We are running after money. Professor Akhtar was just saying that before we started this conversation. We have lost our priorities. We have destroyed our relationship with our neighbors in the name of religion, in the name of ethnicity, in the name of language. States are getting divided. In the name of water resources, countries are getting divided. So we are having huge LSDs, lifestyle disorders. Today, young generations in the 20s and the 30s are having problems of hypertension, problems of sugar, blood sugar, and other diseases like pancreatic or eye diseases. So this is a huge problem. And in this, what's happening? There's a drop, there's an entropy of our cultural and moral values. So we don't know what we are doing. We don't know. I mean, we think we are religious, but we are polluting the rivers. We think we are spiritual, we are polluting the water ponds. I mean, there is a doha in the Quran, or there's a line in the Bhagavad Gita, or there is a statement in the Bible which talks about the river Jordan or river Ganga. But there is no line in those holy scriptures which says that you go there and you start polluting it. You know, I mean, you could actually bring a little bit of water to your home and do the same ritual instead of actually going to the river and polluting it. And commercial agencies, big blocks, blockbusters, like Durga Puja in Kolkata and others are actually taking full advantage of this in the name of river tourism, in the name of sacred tourism, in the name of ecotourism. They're actually playing with water, and they're combining ethnic functions, religion, spirituality in their definition. It is their definition of religion, it is their definition of spirituality through which they're defining the use of water. And they are giving the whole blame to the original scriptures of India and the world, which has never said and never talked about uh, injudicious use of water. Never. It's never there. We have all distorted and we have all played with these interpretations. We have misused and we have garnered misconceptions in the name of science and progress. Because about one third of the scientific people thinks religion is bakwas, it's a myth, it's a magic, it should be discarded. Another one third does not care about it, and they don't talk about religion. And another one third, they are religious. They also don't have read their own scriptures properly, and they think they're religious, and they interpret their religion in their own mind. So they have made a divide between religion and science, the science of religion and the religion of science, and they have created a society which is absolutely obnoxious, and they talk about progress. So these three groups in the world have destroyed the way water is being used. Water is being used. And the rivers and the ponds of India and the whole world is absolutely getting destroyed. More so in India because we have so many cultural functions and deep cultural functions and religious functions in and around water. So it's very important. So these are the 4 points. So coming to Maslow, if you look at this particular slide, I hope everybody can see this slide.
Yes, we are
Can
seeing the slide.
everybody
Thank
see
you.
this? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is everybody knows Maslow. Maslow is everywhere. He's in economics, he's in management, he's in planning, he's in sociology, he's in transpersonal psychology. Maslow is a global name, and you pick up any book from these 5 areas of knowledge that I've just talked about, there's a reference to Maslow. And Maslow is actually a very interesting person who transformed the Indian philosophy of the hierarchy of minds, which was actually developed by Sri Aurobindo long back and by the rishis of India thousands of years back, into a very modern external paradigm, which is called the hierarchy of needs. So Maslow says the physiological needs are not the only things that you should care for. So the physiological values of water are not the physiological values of water. I hope you can hear me because I can see some snag. Yeah. So the
Yes, sir, we
physiological.
hear you.
Yes.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you. I just want to be a little sure. So the physiological values of water are just not the only thing that you care for. Let's talk about water only because that's our scope today. I mean, much more than that are safety, about resources, about health, which is very, very important. But if we just remain within physiology and health, that's not everything. That's not everything. You cannot justify function just by virtue of shelter and resources and health. You need a higher layer, which is friendship, friendship with water, communities around water, protection of water bodies, intimacy with water, family relationships with water. Your great great grandfather had made 7 ponds, and his great great grandson is closing ponds to make buildings to make profit. So what a change in about 7 generations. About 7 generations back, a great great grandfather was a worshipper of water, divine water. What is divine? There's nothing divine about water if you don't have love. Love is the touch of yours that makes water divine. बाहर में तो कोई divine नहीं है. If you are not divine, then the world is not divine to you. If I am like a dasyu, if I'm like a dacoit, and I still have 4 PhDs, and I'm the most educated person in the world, but if I don't have love in my heart, I'm the most uneducated person in the world. I mean, my technical degrees and all my papers and publication has no meaning because I don't have love in my heart. The problem in today's education is that we are mostly speaking the words of the brain. We don't have a word of the heart in what we are saying. So what is that friendship which was mentioned in some Upanishads or in the Quran or in the Bible or in some text by Leo Tolstoy, or maybe there is some description by Martin Luther Jr. describing the water of Mississippi, which is the lifeline of the black people in America. That is intimacy. That is family. That is a sense of connection. So love and belonging is the first cultural level. This is something with Gandhiji and Tagore mostly, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and even Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, the frontier Gandhi, they all talked about. But right after 1947, we didn't listen to them. We thought India just needs industries and machines and science, and we have destroyed the country. We have neither been able to develop our cities based on water, and we have also destroyed our villages based on water. And as a end of that, villages has got delinked from the villages have got delinked from the cities, and the cities have got delinked from the villages. And as a result of that, half of our country is absolutely disjointed, and states are splintering and deep mosaicing into smaller and smaller parts. And today we have reached a tipping point where everybody wants to separate from everybody. One language group wants to separate. Ye pond mera hai, ye aapka nahi hai. This pond doesn't belong to you, so I'm going to fill it up and make my building. That river portion doesn't belong to that country. Are river does not belong to a country. Countries belong to a river. I mean, river does not belong to a country. All countries belong to a river. River is the mother of countries. The entire conception of water is inverted today. We go by politics. We go by divisions and rules and laws. It is the river, the flow, which is the mother of civilization. Brahmaputra belongs to China, Bangladesh, and India together, Tibet. So India, Tibet, China, and Bangladesh has to sit together with Brahmaputra, because Brahmaputra is the mother of these four countries. And we don't do that. We are fighting over Brahmaputra. And in the name of science, in the name of politics, in the name of arms and ammunition. So we don't have any love in our progress. We don't have any belonging. We don't have any transnational moral values or ecological ethics. So this is a very important level. So since we don't have the third level, which is love and belonging, we are coming down. We have a community disorder. Look at the left hand side of the slide, and we have an individual entropy. So as individuals, we are becoming machines and brutes, and as communities, we are having disorder. And people are fighting in the name of religion, ethnicity, language, politics over water. Over water. What is this? And we are talking about water summits and Nobel Prizes over water. So the connect, the human relationship, the path of the heart, in the words of Christ, for example, Christ said, the kingdom of God is inside you. The Upanishads say, the soul is right inside you. So the soul does not see water outside. So what soul do you have? What love do you have? You may be going to the mosque or the temple or the church 100 times in a day, but you are still not religious, because just by believing in something does not, by faith, religion and ecology doesn't mean anything. You have to practice what you're saying. Gandhiji said, you be the change that you like to see outside. We talk big, but we are not practicing what is there in our scriptures, what is there in our shastras, what is there in our holy books, what is there in the great sayings of the experts, like Al Gore. Who reads Al Gore? Everybody is reading a businessman's chronicle. Everybody reads the Economic Times. Nobody reads Down to Earth. Nobody goes to that magazine, because our priorities have been absolutely corrupted in the name of education. So there's a disconnect. And that is why we cannot rise to the higher level of respect. And respect means respecting others. Because if you don't know how to respect others, nobody will respect you. If you cannot recognize others' freedom, nobody will recognize your freedom. Today, look at Europe. In the name of civilization and progress, about half of Europe is fighting with the half of Europe. Look at the United States of America. It's absolutely a divided country right now over different values and notions of politics. The country was never like this just a few decades back. Those ideologies of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, they're all gone. The Freemasonics. Today, America looks as undeveloped as many other countries in the world. They're fighting over petty things. Russia is fighting over petty things. So the two big superpowers in the world are actually not superpowers. They're actually very poor people in terms of values, in terms of spirituality, in terms of traditions. They're fighting over regions and dividing them. They're dividing the Middle East. They're dividing India. They're dividing Iran and its relationship with the Arabic countries. I am becoming a little political. That's the truth. And we are talking about development. So there is a huge disconnect between the lower levels of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the upper level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because we have lost the love, the friendship. And the river is actually a symbol of love. That boatman in the river teaches you love. He is a simple man on the boat who does not care that much. You may be having one ride with him and you just pay him a little bit of money, but he's so happy. That happiness is actually a million times expensive than all the salaries that you get over 1 year. So that flow, it is just not river. When Tagore is writing a poetry on river, which he had, about 150 of its poetries are all on rivers. So for him, river is flow, river is dynamics. River is a flow from the mountains to the ocean, origin and destination. That's the thermodynamic cycle. It's coming from the perennial snow-capped mountains to the perennial ocean. That's the hydrological cycle. That is there in our ancient scriptures. So the life cycles, the hydrological cycles are ancient wisdom. Today, modern science is just recognizing them. I mean, just a few decades back, modern science was only linear. It was reductionist. It was movement from A to B. But today, modern science is just beginning to understand things are in cycles. It's non-linear. It's dynamics. It's going on and on. And the spring, which was bloomed by some rain last year, will be the same spring which will bloom future flowers this year. Will be the same spring which will bloom with the new rains, the next range of flowers in the year 2024. And the same thing will happen for 2025 and 2026. So if we are not careful with our water distribution, if you are not careful with our usages, if you are not careful with our regional understandings and balances, we are going to destroy the ecological scales and balances of our planet. And this is exactly that we have done. We have lost our moral, spiritual, and traditional values of water. So this is, I think, the most important slide which I wanted to show to you. After this, I'll just show you some examples from the past. And Professor Akhtar will talk more about the current notions and the current practices and the problems and the issues of today. So my little presentation will probably act as a small background to his more pragmatic and more down to earth deliberation which he's going to do. So our spiritual values are high up there and our material values are way down there. We don't have a moral connection. We don't have an ethical connection, because morality and ethical things are not laws and regulation. It is love and belonging. If I cannot love my neighbor, if I cannot love the person on the other side of the border, whether it's Pakistan or Bangladesh, and vice versa, then we cannot use the waters of Indus and Ganga and Brahmaputra together. Together. So that is ecosystems sciences. When you're enjoying things together with distributions of origins and destinations and cycles and everything, that is togetherness. That is when you combine regional planning with water planning and resource planning with the prescription of love, which our prophets, our avatars, and our rishis have taught in this country and other countries for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And we have lost all that, and we think we are scientific. We are not. We are na ghatka na gharka. हम लोग ये भी जनता नहीं है, वो भी जनता नहीं. We are neither spiritual nor we are fully materialistic. We are escapists. We are essentially today, majority of us, we have become escapists. We just want to go from day to day earning money and don't care for even the person next to us. In a high-rise building today, somebody commits a suicide, and then after 5 days, you bring out that dead body. And then you put that dead body in some water or you burn it and the ashes go. That is another use of water. And we don't care because in a high-rise apartment, nobody actually knows who stays at the end of a corridor, how much water he uses. And the same water which comes to my tap in my apartment is the same water which he is using at the end of the apartment. So we stay in the same apartment, and maybe once in a year we have a function, we come down, we have some chole bhatura or masala or pav bhaji and all that, and that's very superficial. We don't care. He buys a Maruti Wagoner, I buy an Audi. If I buy an Audi, he buys a Mercedes Benz. If he buys a Mercedes Benz, someone else buys a BMW. As if Life has become competition. It's driven by competition and comparison. There is no love. There's no belonging. There is no water flowing in our hearts. So, water, the symbol of water, is the symbol of flow of love from one point to the next point. That is the moral and the spiritual value of water. That is the foundation. And that is why water has been used in our Indian spiritual texts again and again and again. And I'll give you some examples, just not from India, and also from beyond the world. So that's part two. I have around 5, 6 slides and I'll end there. So water as an experience of flow and dynamics at various evolutionary levels. So we think we are developing with water. We are about to develop our cities. How many factories we have using how much of water, how many housing we have using how much of. So we are cycling and extracting and transporting and utilizing, but we don't care for that huge lake, which is probably 25 kilometers outside Pune. We don't care for that beautiful river, which is coming down from the Himalayas just outside the town of Jalpaiguri. We don't care for that river, a portion of Ganga, which comes down through Dinajpur in West Bengal, and then it comes down to Kolkata and becomes River Hooghly. I mean, there is no prescription in our books which talks about that. We only know these recycling, extraction, production, and transportation, which is fine. But that's where our knowledge is reduced. So, knowingly and unknowingly, in the name of science, pseudoscience, environmental and ecological science, we are actually increasing the carbon footprint and we are disturbing our planet. So, we are absolutely disturbed in our relationship with water. Because if you see all these function, which is shown in this slide, at every point of connection, there is certain input and certain output of water. That transportation truck that you see, if I take my cursor, also runs on water. It runs on water. It runs on water. And even that utilization reuse runs on water. The entire industry runs on water. The housing runs on water. Everything is on water. But we don't care. Why we don't care? Because it's given. It's given to us. That's a huge problem that we have. So water is actually very ancient. It's very ancient. This is a case of Varanasi. And Mark Twain said it's older than history. It's older than tradition, older even than legend. The great American explorer, traveler, and looks twice as old if we put them together. And Mark Twain said, I think the history of Varanasi is about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years old. We have no idea how old a city it is. And what was this city? This city was a city of water. Ganga comes from the north, from the Himalayas, and goes to the ocean. But there is one portion, Dakshin Bahini Ganga, that means southbound Ganga, takes a turn. It turns and makes a northbound. So the portion where it becomes a northbound, it forms a very interesting shape, like the crescent, like the half moon. It could be the half moon on the head of Shiva in Hinduism, or it could be the half moon of the Eid ka Chand in Islam. But it's a crescent, it's a half moon. And if the place becomes sacred, we really don't know why it becomes sacred, but there's something which people have realized over hundreds and thousands of years, that is something very interesting out here. And people have come here who has become boatman. People have come here who have spent hundreds of years on these ghats, and they've looked at the morning rising sun coming from the Ram Ghat on the other side, and they have looked at the setting sun on the other side. People have been selling things. So all these activities, the creative economic activities, the small, medium, the micro, which is the backbone of India, is based on water, the flow of water. So every day you go to Varanasi, you see the same thing, but the same thing is a new picture. That is called the beauty. So here you see a tradition which is based on water. You see a tradition of flow which is around water. Here you see a religious scripture which is based on the journey of Ganga from the origin to the destination. And for some time, the Ganga is turning northbound, looking at the Himalayas from where it has originated. So that is the whole spiritual symbolism of Varanasi, where Dakshin Bahini Ganga becomes Uttar Bahini and becomes Kashi. So it's written in some ancient scripture called the Skanda Purana. And there's also a little bit of hint in the 8th mandala of the Rigveda. Somebody has to read it directly instead of reading some funny interpretation in some history books written by some politically biased scholars who has not even read the Vedas and the Puranas with his own hand, but has only read political documents, and he's continuing the same falsified, erroneous, biased interpretation ages after ages. This is a problem with Indian intellectuals today. Nobody wants to do research on their own. They're just following political camps and gangsters, mafias of political ideologies. And they have corrupted the history of India. They have corrupted the history of Persia. They have corrupted the history of Arabia. They've corrupted the history of Asia. That's why Asians are fighting amongst themselves in the name of religion, in the name of thoughts, in the name of languages. Because there's a force which wants that Asia gets divided. And they are very happy with it if Asia is divided. And there's one way to divide them, which happened between the 1930s and the 1950s, is to divide India, Bangladesh, Pakistan with water. Divide India at Indus, divide India at Ganga and Brahmaputra. Because if you can divide the Indian subcontinent, then the people of this larger region won't be able to stand up and come up in the next 150 years or 200 years. So this is the first thing that they have done. The second thing that they have done is to destroy Varanasi by putting train tracks and destroying all its ponds. And James Princip actually did it. And the third thing that they have done, you destroy the history books, corrupt them, and put their interpretation and destroy the ancient interpretations that comes on the water and the flow from ancient times. Beautiful plot, and everybody gets corrupted. And our moral and spiritual values are all erased, and our traditional values come down, and there is no other tradition but just to follow some political ideologies which are taught by political camps of India, who are reigning the Indian mind, the Indian intellectual mindsets. All our universities today has become a political akhra, where it's driven by politics. There is no free research. There is no free thinking. And anything that you talk about the past, wo to bakwas hai bhai. And anything you talk about political ideology, that is scientific. And one of the main problems is water, because there's no interpretation of water. If you look very in detail, you know what I'm trying to say. I just give you one of the biggest examples of India's poverty, which is the division of India based on water resources. And that is how the Punjab of India got divided from the Punjab of Pakistan. That is how the Bengal of India got divided from the Bengal of Bangladesh. And today we are fighting. We are still fighting in the name of funny things, without understanding that somebody else is enjoying because of this fight. We think they're the friends, and our friends have been converted to enemies. And it has all happened because of our misunderstanding and misinterpretation around water. That movie Water and whatever it is. So this is the ancient wisdom which comes from the Rigveda. Now, today we talk about water cycles and hydrological cycles. But if you go to the Rigveda, Dasam Mandala, I think you all know India gave the world the ideas of 0 and 1 and 10, Dasam, which has become the word decem, decimal systems. It has everything has come out of India. But today, about 90% of the Indians actually don't know about it, because the Western historians have taught that everything has come from the West. So we are absolutely subservient to the Western paradigm. We are not saying West is wrong, but why should our history only have a one-way trajectory? Why not the other trajectory from Asia to Europe? Why has it been suppressed? So one of the truths that is there in our scriptures is the ancient water cycle. If somebody goes to the Rig Veda today, thanks to Google, you can type Rig Veda 1.164. You'll get all the sutras. See it for yourself, what's written in, and you'll see the hydrological cycles at the upper atmosphere. You'll see the hydrological cycles at the middle atmosphere. You'll see the hydrological cycles at the lower atmosphere. You'll see the beautiful connections between different levels of water. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And today we are reading from the West that life cycles, hydrological cycles. Why do we have to learn that from the West? It was already there in Asia. It was there in India for thousands of years. The ideas of flooding, infiltration, recharging, aquifer, reflooding. The whole idea of flooding. Noah's Ark, a Saptarishi in a boat. These are ancient ideas which has come from Asia, from India and the Sumerian civilization. Much before Europe was civilized. So India Iran, Persia, and Arabia, and the Middle East, Hittites, Anatolia, had ancient constructs of water systems 1,000 years prior to the Greeks and the Romans, much before the birth of Christianity, much before the birth of Christianity. So this is the history of water that we have to understand. Let me go fast. So the ideas of water runs through one of the mystic sides of Islam, which is Sufism. So in Sufism, there's a deep foundation of water. Water is seen as a reflection, as a mirror. That leads to the idea of shish mahalam, the mirror. So there is one light. If you put that through hundreds of glass particles, it looks like a chandelier. It looks like a set. But there's only one light. So there's one divinity. There's only one God, who is the God of all the gods of all the religions. The God is independent of any single religion. I mean, religion has been created by man. I mean, God has not created religion. So religion is not for division. Religions are for integration. But today, water has been used as a wrong paradigm to divide one religion from the other religion. So Sufism says that water is actually multiple reflection. I mean, I see you, you see me. Every self reflects the other self. So the water reflects multiple times. The light of God, which is the noor of God is reflected on the river, the flow, 1,000,000 times, and you can see the moon 1,000,000 times. So one God has become million things in the world. He is the creation. So there's no divide between the creator and the creation. The creator has become the creation. So if you kill people in the creation, you're actually killing God. So you are becoming absolutely non-religious if you kill people in the name of water, in the name of religion. So this is mystical Islam, which is Sufism. It's called Shish Mahalam. So this kind of things are there in Agra Fort and Red Fort, but people, they don't understand it. I mean, from what sources? So if you look at the dohas of Mainuddin Chisti and Salim Chistis and others, they're all there. But you need to go up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to understand these deep dohas. And it's also there in Buddhism, which is called Chitta Chaita Prabhritti. So religion has talked about the highest definitions of water, reflections, multiple reflections. And it's there in the ancient, one of the most ancient religions of the world, which is Judaism. So this is the garden of water, or the water, the four rivers in the four corner. The char, four means Chahar Bagh. So the Chahar Bagh of Taj Mahal emulated the Chahar Bagh of Humayun's tomb. The Humayun's tomb emulated the ancient Chahar Bagh of the much older religion. So you can see the Chahar Bagh of Pasar Gade, which existed before Islam and before Christianity in ancient Persia. This is about 700 BC. Kuraus and Daraus, that is Cyrus and Darius had built these water gardens based on the four square garden. So these knowledge had existed in Asia for about a few thousand years. We have a book on this and we have papers on it. And it is on this ancient principle the Taj has been again built. So the Taj has been. So this is a concept of water as a source, as a fountainhead of immortality, of which the paradise, the Pardus, the Pardeshi, it comes from the same word. So what is Pardeshi is the other side, the divine side, not the material side. Pardus, that is the Egyptian word. If you look at the word mummy, look at the movie Mummy, in the end they'll say Pardush, Pardush. Pardush means Pardes, that is paradise. So the Latin word paradise, the Egyptian word Pardus, and the Sanskrit Farsi word Pardesh, they come from the same origin. That is the concept of paradise. So today we have lost the paradise. Milton's paradise lost because we have lost the moral, spiritual, and the traditional values of water. And today we are talking big. We don't know what we are doing because we are neither fully religious nor we are fully scientific. Na ghatka, na gharka. And we are talking big and we are destroying each other. So these ancient gardens of Edens, Odin, Adonis of Greece, were the symbols of Godhead. And this charbagh was even used by Christianity to develop the sign of the cross, which is the crucifix. So Christ sacrificed on the water of life, because he is the water of life, the water of resurrection, because the whole of Christianity is based on the waters of Jordan, so John the Baptist baptizes with water and Christ baptizes with Holy Spirit. So you see, Right at the foundations, right at the foundations of Christianity is the parable of water, holy water, water, holy water. So the entire construct of Christianity, the entire construct of Hinduism, the entire construct of Islam and Sufism runs on water. The entire construct of the Garden of Paradise runs on water. But today there's no one to tell you all this. There are hundreds of people to tell you, fight, usko maro, usko bhagao, kill him. This is what they're preaching. Nobody is saying, come, let's sit together, let's understand the flow, let's understand that Ganga, which is on the Indian side, is also there on the Bangladesh side. Let's all sit together and solve our problem. Nobody is doing that because we are uncivilized in the name of science today, in the name of science. Anyway, I've taken up a lot of time. So water is not just scientific, it's a part of quantum physics. It's a part of modern sciences. So the ancient constructs of water, one water which is absolutely, boisterous and violent, and another water which is absolutely shant, sanity, absolutely calm. These are the two sides of water. So in Indian philosophy, one is Prakriti or Shakti, and the other side is Purusha, what you call Shivam, Shantam. So the two sides of God, one is violent, Rudra, and the other is meditating Shiva, Shantam, are the two sides of water. So to understand the moral, spiritual, and traditional values of water, we actually have to go to this deepest understanding. So I'll come to the last two slides. So this is from one of the greatest scientists that India has ever produced in the last 150 years, who produced other great scientists like Meghnad Shah, the father of planning commission, S.N. Bose, the man who worked with Albert Einstein, and Devendra Mohan Bose, who started CSIR and DST, the Department of Science and Technology. So their guru was Jagadish Chandra Bose, one of the friends of Swami Vivekananda, and also others like Tagore and others. So this is from his book. So he went up north into the Himalayas to have a whole experience of the Ganga, from Ganga Sagar to the Himalayas. And then he was absolutely moved and he said, "Oh Ganga, where are you coming from?" And Ganga, as if he heard, said, "I am coming from the locks, the non-linear locks, the cyclic locks, the eternal twist of time in cycles of the great God of eternal time. Mahakal, Mahakal. I'm coming from that eternal thing of eternal time, the locks of time." So to understand water is to understand time, temporal dynamics of civilization. So water is not just opening up the tap and having a glass of water. It is much more. At every level of consciousness, there's an interpretation of water. If you don't understand that, then we are equivalent to animals. Animals are even better than us. Animals are even better than us. They know how to use water. But we human beings have lost the sense, the moral, the spiritual, and the traditions, the downloading of moral and spiritual values from the past. So highest is spiritual, intermediate is moral, and lowest is material. So material values has no meaning if you don't have a backing of a moral level, and moral values has no meaning if you don't have a backing of a spiritual origin. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So today, what has happened to the world? So this wonderful Wednesdays for Water, I'm very thankful to the entire fraternity who is present here, that I could share some of my own understanding. You may agree, you may not agree. That is science, that is debate, that is argument. But this is what I have understood about the dynamics, the moral, the spiritual, and traditional values of water. Time is running out. The world is in a tipping point, and there are hundreds of disasters which has happened in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If we don't change ourselves, then probably rivers will stop coming from the mountains, and the rain clouds will be pouring in some other places where it's not supposed to pour. Deserts will become green, and green will become deserts, and Siberia will have fire, and dry places will have water. There'll be absolute chaos and imbalance. So these are all the issues of water cycle. These are all the issues of. So this is what Jagadish Chandra Bose had talked about, and it comes out very well in the words of a great quantum physicist, a Nobel laureate, Professor Werner Heisenberg, who was also a friend of Tagore. He came all the way to Kolkata in 1929 to meet Tagore and discuss about quantum physics and Indian philosophy, the connections, the non-linear dynamics. And this is what Heisenberg said. It is probably quite true generally in the history of human thinkings. The most fruitful developments frequently take place only at those points where two different lines of thought meet. So he says that if we are not able to combine our material values of water, the functional values of water, with the moral, ethical, and spiritual values of water, we are heading for a disaster. So we have to move out from competition, from the Darwinian survival of the fittest, to higher levels of care, concern, and cooperation, altruism, and love. Without that, we are not going to destroy ourselves only, we are going to destroy the planet. We'll destroy everything. And so one of the ways, one of the solution to approach that and be the change that you like to see outside is to rediscover the moral, the spiritual, and the traditional values of water. It is so important. So I think with this, I'll end my presentation. I hope some of the people who are here, they have probably liked some of the ideas, which are not my ideas. What I have just done is to just assimilate them. So with this, I stop my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It is always pleasure to listen to you, and I'm sure Akhtar sir will agree to it that I think both of us particularly, we can just sit through and listen to you endlessly, and we have had the privilege in the past as well. But I'm happy that others also have the privilege today that you are here with us. Very, very enlightening, and I'm just taking one line from Jagdish Chandra Bose, and so that I can give more time to Akhtar sir, and we will start from there. And also, I know Akhtar sir also a lot of time talks about it, about this supplementing and subjugating, and how we can also see how Jagdish Chandra Bose also talked about that care, concern, and cooperation is more required than actually competition or even contempt of water. So somewhere what the water is seen is also what we see in the civilization, the way we are, the way water is, or the way water is, we are also the same, So one line I would say that the water that flows in you also flows in me. So if the water is outside polluted, I am also polluted, or we are also polluted for that matter. Akhtar sir, I know you must be also very excited, and also I would like to say all the participants, we are very much happy that you are here, but also today the session will be longer, and it is very rare that we get to hear both these gentlemen here. So I'm equally excited. Akhtar sir, over to you. I would like to see how you really interpret bit of Joycean sir and take us more into this rigorous journey of water, and where do we stand a chance of hope? Thank you, Joycean sir, and we hear Akhtar sir now.
Good evening, everybody participating in this webinar. Sen sir has taken us to a very high pedestal, spiritually, morally, everything he has discussed globally, locally. So from that point, I'm trying to, I will bring you back. I think video has gone. Yeah, it's changed.
No, you are visible, sir.
Yeah, you are visible.
Mansee, can you do the correction? Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you.
I'm visible. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. See, good, sir. So I'm going to talk very basic things, which may look even very basic or childish to intellectuals, people like who are talking about the high moral spirits of the water and the relevance of the water. But my basic concern is with the ground realities today. And naturally, water is the great asset for the human life. It's sustainer of the human life. All the religion, Sanatan, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, everything, every religion has done a lot of discussion on the water and its relevance and its importance and its preservation also. They have also warned at many places for the precautions for keeping the water sustenance on the earth. Even in my book, which I published a few years back, that is Islamic Architecture perceptions and paradox. There I have contributed one paper, one chapter, which is having lot of direct revelation from the Quran, and that is about the water, purity of water, importance of water, how to contain the water. There's a lot of quotes are there from the Quran about the water itself. And same is with the Sanatan also, with the, even you start with the Gayatri mantra, there is a lot of things about the natural resources, water. Water is most important. But the unfortunate part is that we got all the exalted narration for the water. Scriptures are there. Scholars throughout the history have been praising the water, right? Starting from the Rahim to Kabir, and everybody is talking about the water. Because one line which I remember is Jal Sab Soon, कि water life का जो sustainer है, that is water. तो उस situation में, when we are coming to present situation, presently we are having lot of crisis about the water. And what I have analyzed, that the crisis is because of the mismanagement or wrong management of the issues. Attention has not been there to streamline or manage the water properly. In fact, there is no shortage of water. Nature is giving lot of water to our land. But thing is, we are not managing that. Our development is not sustainable. That is not taking it the resources, the natural resources in the proper sustenance mode. So that is the cause of all the crisis, especially about the water. I will tell you one thing. I wrote about the water issues in the watersheds in 91. That is published in the Indian Institute of Architects Journal of that year. That time when I started talking about the water, the importance of watersheds and the river, nobody was taking it seriously. Because water was taken for granted, it is there, it will be always there. But we were destroying that, and I was raising the concern, and nobody was responding to it. Similarly, I did a study on the Gomti River and how to contain it, how to retain it, how to sustain it. That was again even presented at the state government level and everywhere, but that was not could evoke any good reaction to it. And we continue to destroy all the resources of water. We kept drying out the watersheds in the city itself, in the periphery itself. Lot of things were there which were against the sustenance of water in the country, which is the practice is going on from precisely from 30 years, more than 30 years. When we were in a school, water was not an issue. We can drink the water from any tap in the school. But now you can't do it because water is contaminated everywhere. It has to be, you have to go through the number of filters and then you take the water. And you are dependent on that now. And I can quote you one thing, even in 1991, at that time also, when the National Convention of the Architects was going on in Lucknow, that time I told some press person, the time is not far off when water will be sold in pouches. So that was time it was not there, but eventually the water, bottled water came and the pouch water came, and now that is the order of the day. We are dependent on that water and we cannot take the water directly because everywhere water is either not available or it is highly contaminated. The reasons for this is that we are not managing the water properly. There are a number of multiple reasons. Like one reason you can say, oftenly we take land or dilution as a negative things. To do the development, we flatten the land. But actually, one of my friend, Anil used to say, flat land is not fit for habitation. Undulation should be respected. And undulation gives the water channels scope for retention of the water, scope for the flow of water, but that we have dried out. In the medieval cities or cities in the early 20th century and 19th century, you can find a lot of water is going through the natural drains. But that is not possible now because we dry them out, then pump it out mechanically and throw the water out. So such things are happening. Even if you take the example of Delhi, water was not available much in the river Jamuna at that time also. Even from that time, lot of water was being harnessed from the ridge area itself. The rainwater was coming and that was collected in various ponds. And then the city was sustaining on that. But there's all those sources have been dried out. Now Delhi is dependent on the imported water, water from the Haryana, from the Uttar Pradesh, from even from the Punjab. So we are taking all the water from the various cities to feed the Delhi itself. So this is not the right solution for it. The natural resources, we are not bothering about it, because similarly another thing happened with that is the construction techniques. Earlier, a lot of construction was being done with the earthen bricks, clay bricks, and excavation was done every year to, and that excavated land was used to retain the lot of rainwater, and which was percolated in the earth itself. So now that is not there. Even in the villages, the ponds are not there, the ditches are not there. So there, everything water is there, not being retained. So eventually, every drop of water which is coming as rain is having very high rate of runoff. So when you allow the runoff, you are having the floods also, and all the water is going and accumulated in the sea, which is not usable because that becomes lines. So if you can retain the water in the undulations on the land itself and recharge, let it percolate with time and below the ground, then you can have round the year lot of water from many places. Some places may not have some, but lot of abundance will be there if the water is not, the runoff is reduced. Runoff is the main issue of shortage of water. So runoff is to be arrested. And second thing, which is very different in, especially in Indian context, water rivers in this, when we are passing through the cities, we are having the arresting the water for the municipal supply at the wrong points. The always the barrage which is coming up in most of the cities at the downstream after the city. So in that area, when the river is passing through the city, lot of drains are discharging the river itself. And there you retain the water, the drain water, the culprit water, the dirty water, and from that you try to pick up the clean water for the supply to city. So that is not in one city. In many cities you will find, cities are mostly along the some river bank. And this thing is happening in many cities where the river is when passes through the city. There is a barrage at the end of the city, and that was retaining the water. And what water they are retaining? They are retaining eventually the drain waters only, the culverts water, dirty water, grey water that is being retained, and a lot of river get the highly polluted, and contamination of water is there at the end of the rivers. So that is to be, there has to be a thought that when we are having the river in a dual role of supplying the fresh water to sustain the life, as well as to take out the drained water, the rejected water out of the city. So how to manage that? That has to be given a scientific thought, that how we can have the fresh water from the river, and meanwhile, whatever water is coming even after the STP or something, that is to be drained out. So how that is to be drained out? It could be drained out only through the river or through some other culverts. So if we can segregate do this, we can put attention on this, how to handle this dual role of river, which is specific in our context. When river is being used as a drain also, it is cannot have the clean water, and water, whatever you may have is direction from the religion or from the scriptures, from the spirituality, but rivers will be contaminated. And if the rivers are contaminated, then there will be no chance, no source for clean water. So that is the one dilemma which is to be solved, how to handle this dual role of river when they are passing through the cities. And second thing is how to retain the water which is coming as a rain, to reduce the runoff of the water. If we can reduce the runoff, we can have enough water to sustain life almost throughout the year, or with major portion of the year. We can then extract from then the technology will come. When the water is percolated below the ground, then that can be extracted. But if the water is not going below the ground, because the other reason for this situation is our form of the cities, which cities we are growing amorphously, they are growing in all direction. So when they grow in all direction, a concentrated mass is created. And when the mass is concentrated, that means we are reducing the water percolation below the ground. So eventually water core is becoming dry. And even we are having the problems and situation at times, earth caves in and lot of buildings demolish it because of the dry core is there that cannot sustain with time. So that is to be handled by the reorganizing the form of the cities. They should be such that the water can be percolated also. And there is a lot of scope. We don't have to just copy the other countries, what is to be then done. We have to explore what is to be done in the local conditions. Even our cities are having lot of undulated flyovers, viaducts. They all get choked with the water when rains are there. So all that water can be canalized to percolate within the ground, below the ground, and then you can take it. Instead, we just pump it out and then drain it, put it in the culvert and throw it in the river, and then the river take it to the sea. So that is the issue of handling the water. Whatever is water we are getting from the rains, from the nature is giving water in abundance to the country. But we are not thankful in handling that because of that Professor Sen has also said that sheer out of greed, we are just choking the ponds, the ditches, the everything. We are just flattening it up for making more construction. You can always do the more construction. There's no problem, especially now the technology is there, transportation is there, communication is there. You can spread out your cities. And when you spread out your city, you don't concentrate on one point. You can just do, rather this is the time for deconcentration. But still we are doing the concentration. We are not stopping at any place to from the concentration. And if we continue with this concentration of the cities, eventually we are heading for a disaster situation, which will ruin us. Definitely it will, because few years back I had a seminar at Jamia where we invited the chairman of the National Commission, NGT, Greenwood Tribunal. He was there. We presented we read out the document also. Then that time we suggested that in Delhi situation, every year we are having a very bad air condition, very poor water condition throughout the year, and especially bad conditions in the summers and in the winters, and keep blaming on the Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. They are doing burning, and that is coming here, and then apply for odd and even on the automobiles and blaming the water resources that the automobiles are polluting. But the things remains that we are not doing the actual main contribution is pollution is coming from the construction industry, because when we are talking about the PM 2.5, that is basically originating from the building materials. The dust is coming from that. It's not coming from the emissions. So for that, we suggested that we must declare Delhi as a zero construction. If we want to sustain Delhi, it should be zero construction, first thing. And second thing is find out the lands within the city and create watersheds and microforest. Microforest will give you the air balance, and the watersheds will give you the water balance. So even lukewarm effort was there. Some things are happening in creating the watersheds and the forest, but that's not the intensity which is required. But construction is going at a much higher pace. It has not stopped. A lot of new construction is coming up. And when that concentration is coming, actually the congestion is going on. It will be more congested city. And when it will be more, congestion will be increased. You cannot reverse the pollution. You cannot reverse the damage. We cannot meet the shortage of water. You cannot clean the air. That all will remain there. Cosmetically, you can do everything. You can just shout it out. You can write papers and articles, suggest strategies, take out the money to do this and that. But actually, the ground realities will remain same. When that was the issue was there to have an odd and even for the automobiles, I said that time only, if you can do that's fine. But the dust which is being accumulated on the all the streets when the trucks are moving there, so that is every day you are getting about a 1 feet dust deposits on the roads. How to remove that? First remove the dust, then only you can talk about the PM 2.5. If dust is not removed, then that is not going to be affected. So for handling the situation, we have to take the bull from the horn. And we have to take the hard measures. Leave the greed, leave the profitability. First, we must have emphasis on the sustainability, natural of the resources, natural resources, that is water and air. And for water, you have to just have a strategy so that lot of rainwater is arrested. It is not allowed to run off. And then The rivers which are flowing through the city, they are not retainer of the contaminated water at the end of the city. That practice has to be discontinued. Even if you can discontinue, you can change the role of river, segregate the two roles, you can solve most of the problem of the water contamination within the cities, especially in major cities. It could be checked. There's no issue in it. In a very short time and a very short investment will be required to segregate these two roles. But only thing is, when the investment is less, it will be not interested. People may not be interested in that. Interest depends on the volume of the money which is being demanded for that project. So these are the only few things which are very important for water situation. And I think this is a very precise submission on the water issue situation of the country, which is a very situation which is going to be a very difficult situation in times to come, especially for the large cities. It will be very difficult to have water to sustain them. And even for agriculture also, if the runoff is not stopped, there will be not enough water for the irrigation also. Water has to be arrested. Maybe small dams, maybe check dams, maybe ditches, maybe ponds. Everything has to be rejuvenated to retain a lot of water which comes in the form of rains in the rural area itself. And that can give you boost in your agriculture. That can facilitate your agriculture, because you have some dams, but they are very few dams which are retaining the water. And the problem is that almost they are also very old dams. Lot of silting has been going on. Their capacity has been reduced. So now new capacity has to be created to retain the water. And if it is not is sensible to retain in big dams, it could be micro dams at the rural areas, in the villages, in the talukas, wherever you are having. You can always emphasize now the facility is with the, you got lot of inputs, digital inputs you can have. You can identify the land through the GIS mapping, which land could be taken up for creating the undulations, for arresting the water. Apply the technology and identify the lands and quantify it, how much water will be retained in that, will be arrested while it is raining, and then how much it will be percolated. Accordingly, now lot of things can be planned, but we have to look for our own indigenous solution instead of looking on the others. So local suggestion can become carved out, applying the latest technology which is globally endorsed, or which is we are pioneering. Those technologies, how to take them to ground level, that is the main task. Technology is there, but context, we have to redefine that technology, that knowledge in the relevant context, in the context which can give the result right now. Spiritually, we can talk a lot of things about the water, we can praise water, but physically, when water is not there to sustain your life, even human body major component is about 75, 80% is water content only. So that way we have to consider the importance of water, and we must focus on long-term vision and a short-term vision, how to arrest the water, how to retain the water, how to reduce the run of water. Even just by putting the STP and discharging the treated water in the river, that is not going to solve the problem. You have to identify the places where you can have the fresh water from the river for the city, and where you can leave this water for going ahead. Because when the water is allowed, river is allowed to flow, it recycles itself. The natural phenomenon has to be taken in account. You may do the research on it, scientific research, but if you find the traditional wisdom relevant today, adopt the traditional wisdom. Let it come to deliver the goods which we are expecting, which we need, because this is the emergency time to care for the water and the air. Because without water and without air, life will be not sustained. Initially, it's a matter of sustenance of water resources and air pollution, but actually this is a matter of sustenance of human life. Human life will be there if you got enough, you got the right oxygen and the water to sustain your life. Then only things could be. So for that, you have to do a larger management exercise to ensure a lot of clean water is available in the country, which is potable water. Potable water is first issue. Then irrigation water is second issue. Both waters are very important for the country. Potable alone is not going to serve you. Beside potable water, you need irrigation water also. Because without irrigation, you cannot have the food produce, and that without food produce, nothing could sustain. Economy cannot sustain. So these things may be looking just confined to this, water or this physical sustenance, but actually they are the issues required for the economic sustenance. Because traditionally, Indian economy has been highly dependent on the agriculture. Industrial economy is there to say, but actually the core of the Indian economy is the agriculture economy. So we must emphasize on enhancing the agricultural economy, and by enhancing the agricultural economy, we need lot of sustainable solution, not just by putting the pesticides and the chemicals and poisoning and with crop. That is not going to work. But we have to increase the yield by putting more land. We are having the good crop, but for all that we will need water. Even yes, we can minimize the use of water. We can apply the scientific methods by like drip irrigation or any other irrigation, but irrigation will be required. Without water, you cannot do that. And for that, water must be taken very properly, and planning should be done at very intense level from top to bottom, ground level, micro level, macro level. Every level has to be thought of the water treatment, water sustenance, water conservation. Everything has to be the top of the agenda. That will give you the leverage on the economic front also and on the physical front also. So I think I have spoken a lot of things about the water. And Mansee, now you can take it over. Or if any questions are there, yes, we can address to it.
Thank you so much, Akhtar sir. And I will also take a pardon from you because I was so excited that I forgot to introduce you, but I would do it right now because
No problem.
I must do it, and please excuse me for that. So Professor S.M. Akhtar is a transdisciplinary practitioner. Actually, I know him so well that I almost took it for granted that everybody knows him. So I was very excited to listen to him. So his scope of work spans architecture, town planning, social science, and environment. Like Joycean sir, he has also written extensively, and he's been actually referred extensively. Apart from, he's being very vocal about many matters, including architecture and built environment per se. He is professor and founder, dean of Faculty of Architecture and Acoustics at Jamia Millia Islamia University in New Delhi, which is now a central university. He has served 4 consecutive terms spanning over many years as the dean. And one of the very important courses which was his brainchild was a degree in acoustics. And I actually met 2 of your students here at the CSE program where I'm here right now at IIT Rajasthan. He's also developed 6 master programs there. And in our architecture and planning faculty, fraternity, he is one of the most known academicians. So, and the reason why we brought both of the guys here and my mentors and seniors is that Professor Akhtar, you very well put together the total economic value of Pearson-Moran framework, where we look at the direct and indirect value, and then we also look at the intrinsic value part of it, where we talk about the bequest. So it's not only meeting the needs of today, but also we have to look for the needs of the tomorrow. So it's a very good progression where we went from Joyce and Sir to really coming at the today's matters of water values. With this, I will actually invite our young discussant, Gokul, who is a student of Central University of Rajasthan. He's doing his master's in sustainable architecture. He is from Ramanathapuram district. As native and born and grew up in Namakkal, also in Tamil Nadu, and which is by the bank of River Kaveri. So he's actually lived through water, and that's why I thought it will be a good, combination for a youth to really come up with his questions and all. He did his bachelor's from RBS School of Architecture in Coimbatore, and as I mentioned, he's doing his master's right now. He tries to learn about the native techniques and methods of how people driven water management works. So with these lines, I also welcome Gokul to join the conversation. And the role of discussant in Wednesdays for Water has been to ask the speakers the questions. And Gokul, you can please ask your questions. I see your questions are there in the chat box, but I think you must ask them. Yeah, go ahead,
Yes, ma'am.
Gokul.
Thank you, ma'am. So good evening, all. So good evening, sir. It's really, you have already answered
Good
all of
evening.
my questions, and both of your presentation have started from ancient stuff to right now practical thing, whatever happening right now in the current situation, even politics, even everything you have already mentioned. Like, it's really a great thing. And I have figured out some questions which I'll just come one by one. And the first one is, most of the rivers in India have been used for the spiritual practices and getting polluted by means of development, which we can consider like industrial development, which all often pollutes, even urban development, whichever passes, any river passes by, which easily pollutes that river. So what is your point of view in that question? But Akhtar sir already have answered this question, like these are the wrong management of government and all. So it's better we can ask this question from Joyce sir.
So I will suggest you, Gokul, one thing. Why don't you do my role as well today? And also, because many of your questions are also answered, you can also basically do the summarization of what both the professors talked about. So, I mean, because many of your questions are already answered. So maybe
Yes, ma'am.
Because it's like a classroom for youth as well as platform, you can tell us what did you learn and what did you like, or disagree with them or agree with them. You know, that can be your style of conversation today. You need not
sure.
focus on asking.
So
go ahead.
Then it's really great. So it's like, sir already mentioned that it's really hard to carry for a river to carry all the both the thing. Like, it has to do all the good thing, also it have to carry out the bad stuff from the city, and it's really hard to do these things. And second thing, throwing half-burned bodies into the river of Ganges. This is already answered by Joyson sir. Like, it's the bad practice of it's a particular religion like things. So it is like none of the religion just appreciating to do this type of pollution in the rivers and in the water bodies. Every religion just, the core meaning of the religion just praising the water, and it teaches us how to respect the water. It's not just appreciating just to throw and just to pollute the rivers from this. And our third question is like, urbanization has led to the construction of building right on the ancient reservoirs such as lakes and ponds, like in the city of Chennai. So in the city of Chennai, it's highly practiced. Like, they are just covering up the ponds and lakes and constructed too much of apartments. And it's clearly mentioned by Joyce and Sir, like, it's not my pond. It's not depends up to me. It's yours. So I'm just closing it. I'm just constructing my pond. So it clearly shows how we are not just in a having bond with our neighbors, having love with our neighbor, having love with our people, everything. So it's really clearly saying these words. And for this, ancient wisdom of water conservation is a collective vision of our ancestors who wanted future generation to be benefit from it. And what should be our vision of our future generation? And this also truly said, like, my great grandfather make ponds and lakes for me, and in my generation we are just closing the ponds and lakes right now happening. And what should be our, and this may be the question, like, what should be our vision for future generation? This is what I wish to ask from Joyson sir.
Joyson sir, please go ahead and answer the difficult question for him.
First, let us appreciate and really, let us give a pranam to Professor Akhtar sir's, wonderful, very pragmatic lecture. I was watching and hearing each and every point, because I'm essentially a student of public health and engineering and environmental engineering, because I'm not an environmental engineer. I'm also not a public health engineer, but I had my opportunity to work with environmental projects way back in 95, 96. I was a part of the first environmental action management plan, which was called SEMSAP in Kolkata. So then I came in contact with a lot of environmental experts, irrigation department experts. Now, irrigation and waterways department is a very important department, a line department of a country. If you go, I'll just give you two, three examples, because without examples, talking about theories and concepts, it doesn't mean anything. If you come to the case of West Bengal, it's a land of rivers. There's actually a district of West Bengal and Bangladesh which is called Nadia. Nadi means
Nadia.
rivers. Yeah. So there are about 150 rivers, small rivers and rivulets and water bodies and water connections. So in other words, the entire zone forget the political boundary. In undivided Bengal, both this side and that side, it is actually an infiltration region. Infiltration region. What does it mean? It means that region has an extra reserve of water, which is stored through 100 years of infiltration galleries, columns in different levels of the top, of the soil structure and the hydrological reliefs that we have. And it is to suffice the region which was just over it, which is Dinajpur and other portions of Bangladesh in West Bengal and East Bengal, and the regions below it, which is Kolkata and the rest of the thing. We are coming to Sundarbans. Now the problem is, in those days, engineers, the best dikes, for example, the best culverts, the best inspection peats or the sluices. I think everybody knows a sluice. The best sluices, in Bengal at least. Somebody will laugh, and Professor Akhtar knows much more than me, were actually built by the engineers of Bengal way back in the 60s and the 70s. And after that, there has not been any concerted water planning, concerted water planning. So if you go up north into the duars, Jalpaiguri, Lataguri, going through Assam and all that. So those are like the foothills of Bengal. And there are about 7 or 8 or 9 rivers, Tista, Torsha, Diana, Mayana, Mainaguri, the rivers. So this is absolutely an infiltration pocket that comes from the Himalayas and then that joins. So there are some groups of engineers at that point of time in the 60s and 70s, in the same way like electrical engineering was not separate from mechanical engineering in the early 40s and the 30s and on that. In the same way, water engineering was not separate from irrigation engineering, was not separate from public health. We didn't have environmental engineering. Terminologies does not make a difference. What makes a difference is attitudinal knowledge. So at that point of time, some of the engineers of North Bengal, they had built some of the best sluices and passages of those rivers, which will come down into Bengal and western Bangladesh, and they'll pass over into the infiltration galleries of mid Bengal and all that. And then in the later years, there was a fight over Farakka, because the greater passage of Ganga is actually going to Bangladesh. The thinner passage of Ganga is actually coming to Kolkata, which is Hooghly. We must remember that river which flows to Bangladesh is about 5 times wider than the river which comes down to Kolkata.
Yeah, same applies to Indus also.
Yeah, same applies to Indus. So it is like a triangulated water basin. So because of political division, it got divided. Now what happened? We have progressed in environmental sciences, we have progressed in water engineering and everything. I'm talking about the supply side. I'm not going to the west side. I'm at the supply side. So what happened after this? I'm not talking about politics. After 60s and 70s, a concerted in Indo-Bangladesh or the undivided Bengal water planning actually never happened. So if you go to Boikuntufur forest, where I had actually gone with my PhD supervisor, Professor Akhtar knows him, Professor R.N. Datta. He's a very famous professor of IIT Kharagpur. A lot of students have graduated under his leadership. So Professor Datta and I, he told me, Joy, let us walk through Boikuntufur, because if you don't walk, if you don't see the forest, if you don't see the sluices, so we took the car and we stopped there. So I'll make my answers short, otherwise I'll take up a lot of time. And then he told me, he said, look at the sluices, the way they are designed, the water infiltration galleries. What is infiltration? Infiltration is actually the science of reserving extra water for the times when you don't have water, when you don't have water. So in the in the yearly cycles of water use and reuse, you have an extra content of water in different levels of substratums of the hydrological and the terrestrial cycle, which is the material plane, the substructure. So this is a combined knowledge of water engineers, geohydrological engineer, and hydrophysical engineers. A group of people come from geophysics and geoengineering. So he showed me some books and everything. So what I came to know, and then I told him, why aren't we doing all that in IIT Kharagpur right now? I mean, why aren't we doing? He said that this is lost knowledge. Today's engineers think like I am doing this and he is doing that, and he'll take care of water and I'll take care of this road building, which will come and go to Lower Bengal and things like that. We don't have what Sir was saying, but Professor Akhtar, we don't have a concerted integral plan, and concerted integral plan is the key to sustainable development. Because if you don't have a concerted integral plan, you cannot do a sustainable plan for it. I'll give you the other example. I'll stop. Yeah, Varanasi. What happened to Varanasi? Varanasi, about 300, 400 years back, it's there in the records. When Thomas Daniel came to Varanasi, the great British painter, look at his paintings, you'll see the pictures of Varanasi. They're filled up with trees, and the whole Varanasi skyline is filled up with trees. Look at Varanasi right now. You won't find a single tree in the skyline of Varanasi.
Except BHU, there is
it's
no
a BHU, and if you go to the Samne Ghat site or if you go to the Sarnath site, So when Buddha came about 2,700 years back to Varanasi, it's written in the Buddhist and the Jaina scriptures. That time, 2,700 years, he said, Varanasi is so urbanized, let me go to the north, to the valley of green, for his meditation and other things. So he's taking a decision to not go to an urbanized Varanasi. So urbanization was there in India 2,700 years back. But that urbanization was inclusive of the green growth of Varanasi. What do I mean by that? Varanasi had more than 700 ponds, kunds. And what was each pond? Each pond was an infiltration of the Ganga water entering the underbelly of Varanasi and flooding those. And what do I mean more? Even the two channels, which is Varuna and Asi, in Hindu's name we have Varanasi. I mean, today if you go, you'll find a black channel with a very high pH.
Asi is 8 kilometers and Varanasi has less than 20 ponds.
And now Varanasi has less than 100 ponds. And the
less
few
than
ponds,
20.
20 ponds. So if you come to, we checked up some of the ponds, and then we found out that some of the ponds look like mucky. They look like mucky nardamas, water channels with the highest smell, and the water is black. When the water is black, what pH value it has. The BOD and the COD level is so high. So what happened? Why did it happen? Because a British engineer, I'm not blaming him, including Indian engineers. His name was James Prinsep. He was a father of Kolkata. He came and he made all this drainage channel into Varanasi to make the new layout of Varanasi. And the engineering department of India at that point of time supported that, and they did the drainage planning, and they destroyed the infiltration gallery. It's a very important term. It's a gallery, like the way you have a gallery of paintings, like the way you have a gallery of shairis, Sufism, like the way you have the galleries of the dohas of Kabirji in Varanasi, like the way you have the galleries of, some sutras from the Rigveda. So this is a gallery of water and flow. So these galleries were systematically destroyed, and Varanasi's ponds were disconnected from the river flow and the backwater flow of the Chunar Valley, So even the rain wash, the runoff, which Sir was saying, from the back end northwestern side, and the trade-off of the water from the southeastern side, from Sultanpur, Varanasi, got delinked from Varanasi. So over a span of 175 years, Varanasi has become what it has become today. It has become a place of hysteria. It has become a place of inferior quality of water. It has become a place, one of my friend, Dr. Amrita Devedi, she has done a PhD on water and public health. So I learned a lot of things from her. We worked for that science and heritage initiative projects. In fact, I did not know all this about 7-8 years back. When I made this 100 trips to Varanasi, I came to know about. So now you're talking about the greening of Varanasi. Today you're making concrete surfaces. You're increasing the impervious layer even more. That means water, rain cannot penetrate, and enter the infiltration galleries which are still existing in Varanasi. So
both rivers are going riverfront. Vara
and look at
Varna and
Ahmedabad.
Ashwin.
Look at Ahmedabad, the way the river has been developed.
Look at Gomti. I mean, I
Look
know
at
Akhtar sir
Gomti in
fought for
Lucknow.
it.
Look at Gomti. Concreting. The moment you concrete, you destroy the perviousness of water infiltration.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think I'll stop here. So what is actually problematic is that in our classes, in our academics, in our research, in our engineering, I mean, fundamentals are missing. Today a mechanical engineer cannot go under a car and repair the car, but he can run Python software and an AutoCAD software. He's good at software, but he cannot go
That applies to architecture
yeah,
planning
that
as
applies. I
well.
mean,
sir.
today someone can do 5 drawings with Illustrator and Adobe Workshop, but ask him to design a wall and go to the site and take a decision on the center line and the setting up, and he or she won't be able to do it. So that means grounded knowledge, ground engineering, ground architecture. That is the tradition of Sutradhar, Mansara, Mayamatam. Look at those scriptures. Everywhere you'll see they're giving instruction to go to the site and work out, do the setting out plan, work out the water plan. Even a small site has a water plan. Today, how many architects actually do a water plan and do the kitchen plan first before designing a house? We all start with a nice entry and a Corbusian housing massing and a Charles Correa kind of a Bauhaus color. But nobody thinks about that water canal which will enter the house and clean the kitchen. And jo kachra nikal jayega, how will it come out? So the most important element of a house design is the design of the kitchen, where you come from the market with your bazaar, and then the janitor comes and takes the kachra out, and the owner of the house, who is a mother or a grandmother, the women, the most important person of the house, much more important than male people, is actually in charge. So you ask the owner of the house that how I should design the house. We don't teach that in our architecture, the water engineer. So there's a serious problem which runs
We are
through our
not
course.
teaching.
We
We are
are
not
not teaching.
teaching
Because why?
architecture.
Because most of the
Water.
faculties are also not practitioners. They don't practice. They have a PhD, they have 25 journal papers, but they have not designed a house. And they have peer-reviewed 25 publications in the last 7 years. Professor Akhtar knows, but they have not designed a retaining wall or a boundary wall. They don't know what is the difference between N15 concrete and M25 concrete. They don't know which concrete to be used where, at what point of time, at what season. Are these being taught? I mean, because the parampara of knowledge, the continuity, the sustainability of knowledge is gone, because the people in the classes, they're not equipped with the knowledge. They know how to write a nice paper in Springer or Elsevier and go to MIT and
We all
Japan.
are publishing. All
Yeah,
three of
we
us
are
are
all
also
publishing.
publishing.
Yeah. So this is a fallacy of academics, and there is a
Yes.
huge academy industry divide. Huge academy industry divide. So that is why this mismanagement, what sir was saying. And that is why other people with lesser knowledge and selfish knowledge, they're taking over the field, because engineers and architects are now equipped to take decisions. And that is why there's an attitudinal. So there are two problems of attitude. One is that we are disconnected with our traditional spiritual knowledge. One, that's one. Two is that in our schools and academics and institutes and universities, we don't have a continuity of the right knowledge to be given to us. So these two leads to two major attitudinal problems. So we are producing half-baked architects, half-baked engineers, half-baked doctors. A
Big
doctor cannot,
architects
yeah,
also.
somebody, you go to a doctor and the doctor will say, allow CT scan, yes scan, that scan. He'll give you 10,000 rupees of pathological report prescription. And he can simply say, if he's a doctor of medicine, that those kind of doctors are vanished from the society. So there is a serious problem with vocational education, knowledge-based education, practice-based education. There lies the whole problem. I mean, I see it this way, and I'm in my, because I was in industry for about 11 years before I joined academics. I have, I'm a very ordinary person, but I have designed close to 45 buildings in my life. In my life, so I know a little bit about what is ground reality. I've done some planning projects. I've gone to the places and walked with engineers and architects and planners. It's not so easy. I mean, we cannot take, and that's why people are losing trust on, and there's a huge disconnect between ordinary people of a region, the academic institutions of an area, and the industrial giants of that area. I mean, there's a huge disconnect. And the fourth group of people, the politicians, taking full advantage of this
Of this divide.
of this divide. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's true. That's true. So, Gokul, do you want to ask some more question, or we would like to open some questions from the people who are here?
I think we can listen to others, some one or two,
Yeah.
if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Sir, before
Anyone?
that, I would
thing-
like to say.
I
Please
think
go ahead,
Akhtar
sir.
sir, I think Akhtar sir has something to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Akhtar sir.
go ahead.
So first thing is, I have to thank you. You have explained Varanasi about the ditches and the culverts and all that, which I was just referred it, and you just explained it properly. So
Yes.
it's great your contribution. And second thing, it's a good coincidence to know that you were in the practice, then you came teaching.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is common
Okay.
between us. I
Yeah,
was
that's the
also
All
in
three of
practice for
us
15
actually.
years. Then directly I became professor and served as a professor.
Yeah.
So that is the giving the edge, working in the
That
field.
that
And
helps
the second thing,
us to look at both sides.
yeah. And second thing, Gokul, I would like to tell you one thing.
Yes, sir.
Gokul, you are there?
Yes, of
Yes,
course
sir.
Yes.
he's going to
Yes.
be
Yeah, he's
there.
there.
You were
Yes.
asking about the task. I will give you a very interesting task for you. You can chase it in future throughout your life or whenever you get the opportunity. You are from the Tamil Nadu, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So Tamil Nadu is always having the water problem crisis, fighting with the Karnataka for sharing the Kaveri water.
True, sir.
But one thing is neglected. You can focus on that. That is Mulla Priyar Dam. So they are having abundance of water, surplus water in the Kerala, and Tamil Nadu is not doing that. And the gradient will be also favorable. It's only a problem of political dispute between the two. Otherwise, lot of water can be canalized from there to Tamil Nadu, and lot of problems can be solved. But that is not coming out because of the just political ambitions or confrontation or something or the other. So you just keep an eye on this opportunity. When you get Kerala water in the Tamil Nadu from the Mulla Priyar Dam or somewhere that basin, it will solve a lot of problem there.
Exactly,
Thank
sir.
you.
True. It's really true. Also, I wish to add two more points in the same issue.
Sure.
Like even in Tamil Nadu also we have enough amount of water because we have right now they are just introducing Ola, that car, Ola bikes and all. They are just manufacturing unit was installed here, and even right they are just getting enough amount of water for their manufacturing, and we still saying that we are just facing water scarcity, water crisis is there like that, but still this manufacturing units and all other stuffs getting their water whatever they need, they are just possibly getting it. And it is true that we are having plenty amount of water, but who was using that? That's the real issue. Also one more thing is that about that bottled water thing. Once I have gone through a post, like a traveler from Tamil Nadu went to Kerala. He was just purchased the bottle can of water, and it is said that it is from Tamil Nadu, and the location is from Tirunelveli district, from Tamirabarni river they have taken. And he suddenly asked that shop owner like about why you are just even that location is in the mid of Kerala. So he asked that shop owner like why it's from for too long away, why don't you have your own local stuff like that? And they simply said like it is not permitted to take water from our land like that thing. So it's clearly visible that they are just getting far away from Tamil Nadu. They are just getting water and they are just selling it in Kerala. Even looking into the condition, Kerala having more than 3,000 to 4,000 mm of rainfall per year, and Tamil Nadu having only 500 to 1,000 mm of rainfall. And this issue is it's clearly visible that it is unethical to have transport water from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, but it's still happening. And this is one more heartbreaking news which ever I have gone through while going through that post. I have felt it is.
Any Joy sir was also explaining this,
Yeah.
from transboundary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
So
I got
actually,
why
yeah,
boundaries
yeah.
how works
I just
everything.
like to say something, if you allow me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, sure.
Yeah. We are in a Kanchipuram program just before the COVID, and we are doing a different kind of a project about, that creative economy and the connections and all that. Then we came to know that right inside Kanchi, there was a water canal from where the ships and the boats used to start and go into the Bay of Bengal and then go for distant lands. And some small ships used to come even from Rome. I
Yes, sir.
thought this is all a story, and then I got some proofs for that. And very recently, near Karaikolam, that is Pompuhar, ancient
Yes, sir.
port has been
Yeah.
discovered, and some radiocarbon dating is tracing it back to 5,000, 6,000 BC or even earlier. So which shows, so India had these knowledges, and they're constantly trading with the Persian Gulf, with Iran, Sumeria, and
Yes,
others.
sir.
It
That's
was
true.
a yeah. So and constantly. So there was a Sumerian Dravidian connection with Persian Gulf. So it's all interconnected. One group of people. And what I
Akhtar
want to
sir,
say,
sir,
today nobody knows about it, and today that water channel is gone. The shapes, of course, they don't
Sir,
come.
knowledge is
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. Professor
Akhtar sir,
Akhtar wants to say something. Yeah.
sir. Yeah. Gopal, Gokul.
Gokul
Yes,
sir.
sir.
One thing you are talking about the bottled water and the urban water and the industrial water needs. Actually, the need of water for irrigation, agriculture need is much higher. So in city, you may be having water, industry may be there, which may be supplying to Kerala also. So that is actually not a big component. Major component required is the water in the agricultural field of Tamil Nadu. So they are
Agreed.
the actual generator of economy. So there, when irrigation is not there, they are not able to optimize their productions. So what I am talking about the water for irrigation also. First is irrigation. Second is urban need. That one is being fulfilled by anybody means. And what Sir is saying, that is very good for commerce, for transportation, for business. But for consumption of water is the sea water, that is normally a saline water, and that is not potable. So
But
that for the I'm talking for the potable water, we can, if we take from the Kerala, from north of Kerala, then the agricultural field could be irrigated, and the surplus can be rerouted to cities also to meet their needs also. But basic need is the agriculture need. The main consumption of Kaveri dispute is the water for irrigation in Tamil Nadu.
that's
So to
true.
Sure.
supplement that
All,
need
yeah,
from the
all,
Kaveri, you can
yeah,
have
and
some
it
water
brings
from the
back,
Kerala
yes,
also.
sure. And it brings back the point of, actually arresting the water, as you were saying, that we eventually have to arrest the
Yes,
rainwater
right, sir.
and put it somewhere rightly
Arrest the water.
and not let it pollute with the wastewater. We are running really late today. I would still like to take some questions from the people, and I thank them for their patience to stay around with us. If there are any questions for the speakers, maybe you may ask. We also have, I see Prabhat Singh sir has joined from IIT BSU, and we were talking about Varanasi. It has become a hot topic because Assi is going to get rejuvenated. I see, Bibhu, you have a hand raised, so maybe we start with you. And quick questions and quick answers, because I am the moderator and I think I have to really take the call. Sorry, sir.
Another 10 minutes, maybe we can.
Yes, no, it's fine. I am enjoying, to be honest. And we are live. Bibhu, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mansee, and thank you, Professor Sen and Professor Akhtar, for this wonderful lecture. I am just curious about the value thing that I think both of you talked about, and also I think the like when Professor Sen was responding to Gokul, you gave the example of that Bengal engineering thing. So I wonder why, for instance, like with so much better understanding of these the complexities of the nature, like all those, I think the way, the kind of knowledge system that we have now, probably understanding that we have now, is much better than the time that you are referring to. So how, for instance, at that point in time, that is not also traditional knowledge, right? The Bengal engineers were designing that kind of structures. So like which was being done there, it somehow has disappeared. Is it something to do with the value that we're assigning to the water or the nature? And one more question. I'm sorry, I'm making it a bit longer. Yeah, the other thing is, like, as I understand, this is I think to Professor Akhtar's presentation as well. So we have been, like, in terms of as a society, we are probably much better positioned to fight or to take up a challenge when the enemy is somebody outside, right? So okay, flawed is something which is like, I mean, is an outside thing. So we could create structures to control the flood, right? But when something like when we are our own enemies, right? So like, for instance, the way we pollute river, like, I mean,
Hello,
contribute to the pollution. Yes, contribute to the pollution. So then we probably are not able to deal with that kind of like, we are not able to fight that challenge. Do you see the value like, I mean, that could be based on the traditional knowledge or like whatever, or the religions or something can actually play, or like can equip us with, like, I mean, whatever the knowledge or the wisdom or the like, I mean, uh, uh, or like, I mean, capacity to fight with the challenges, because most of the pollution challenges that we are facing is actually a challenge. Like, I mean, we are fighting with our own self. We are not able to do that. We are not able to like minimize our like consumption pattern. We are not able to minimize or compromise on the comfort that we need in terms of opening like, I mean, access to tap water or the floss toilets and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think I should stop here.
Who is taking the question? Akhtar sir or Joysin sir? Who would
I can
like
start
to?
and then Akhtar sir, in the same sequence.
Sure.
I start and then Akhtar sir
Okay.
closes.
Okay.
I'll give you an
We
example.
have to be very, very precise.
I'll be very quick.
now.
Yeah, very quick. I'll give you an example. And today, suppose there's a funding which comes from the ministry, 500 crores to a certain institute. What you will see about 500, let's say 100 crores. 500 crores is too much. The 100 crores it comes, and there'll be a decision. You'll see there is a tendency, a propensity about 100 from that 100 crores, about 85 or 90 crores will go in making smart labs, information technology labs based on GIS and water data management and all those kind of things, and try to understand the region, get satellite imagery. Wonderful, beautiful. And you'll see about 5 or 6 crores will go to buying computers and about 90 crores for expensive machines and softwares, everything, and 5 crores and 2-3 crore will be kept for going to some case studies and everything. So what has happened is that we have a propensity towards soft knowledge systems, and we don't have a priority of hard knowledge systems in our current, which I already said before. So what happens, there's a beautiful story by Shatyet Ray's father. It's called Abag Jalpan, which means, the scarcity of water. Somebody comes and asks you for a glass of water, I'm thirsty. And the man replies, oh, water is such a beautiful thing. Water has 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Come inside to my lab, look at the diagram. He said, Bapre Bap, mera ek glass pani dena. And I'm absolutely dying. He said, no, I'll give you that water. Come inside. I have 4 books on water and everything. And then the man is dying. Are sir, ek glass pani. I just want to quench my thirst.
And now I see you at your best.
Yeah,
best
yeah.
humor.
And then the man says, yeah, let me show you what thirst is. I have a diagram on thirst, why thirst happens. I have a biological friend. So there's a computer program which explains thirst with a neurophysiological cycle and everything. बोलते बोलते करते करते ना वो आदमी धड़क से फ्लोर में गिर गया and then is about to die. So today about 95% of our knowledge system has become like this. We are so much into kinds of exercise and all that. We don't have time to go and visit the nearby village outside IIT Kharagpur. We don't have time to go outside, ISC Bangalore and visit the village which is nearby and talk to the traditional wisdom of how they are using water. Nobody knows who stays in those villages. We don't have time. Professor Singh is here. We don't have time to go out of Varanasi and go to Chunar and know about the rock cut technology which existed in that region for 3,000 years, and people are making money out of it. Today, all that industry it's gone. It's almost destroyed. Today, even the loom industries of Varanasi, it's all machinated. The original Varanasi Khandan, the saris and everything. It's almost destroyed. One of my students is about to submit his PhD 2 months later on this. So this is, we are not disrespecting soft knowledge. We are not against lab. But the proportional importance, this is very important. The proportional importance in our priorities, in our academic priorities, in our field study tour priorities, in our workshop priorities, has got inverted. It has got inverted. That story by Satyajit Ray's father, Shukumar Ray's Abag Jalpan, that having that glass of water gets the least priority, and we are doing all the other things, and then we are not serving that one glass of pani to the people of India. We are not serving that one glass of potable water, which sir was saying, Professor Akhtar was saying, to that person. We are not creating those canals of irrigation, across regions which had existed. Instead, we are closing them, because we are talking about urban planning, and we are not talking about regional planning. I mean, most of the planners today are not regional planners. They're all city-centric planners. They have no ideas about regions, regional distributions, about the river distributions, the runoffs, the watersheds, the aquifers, the water distribution, everything. That knowledge, because actually, as I told you in my previous example, those kind of people are all missing, because nobody goes to the field, nobody goes to the village, nobody talks to people. We are all after, soft programmings and this and that. They're all fine, but those 100 crore has come, about 95 grows to lab development and smart lab development. Bas usme se hi sab chala gaya. And 5 crores goes to travel and everything. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So this is one way of answering your question. But if you look at it, you'll see there's a lot of truth in which I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say,
Yes.
and this problem runs with the current level of academia and industries also.
Across.
Even the engineering firms like MN Dastur or say so some of the older engineering firms, like Stoop Consultants, MN Dasturi. If you look at the older engineers of those firms, they were more, they knew much more, about the regions, the variety, the rainfall, the irrigation features. Today, you talk to engineers, they hardly have any local knowledge or regional knowledge or district-wide knowledge, but they have all the other knowledge. They have all the other knowledge, which is so there is someone is quoting, illiteracy in the name of modernity. Now somebody, yeah.
Yes,
So yeah,
Professor
Naik sir himself,
himself posted it.
he has himself processed. So print means, I think Regina has written this thing, because she's a wonderful writer in print. Regina, she's from Sri Lanka, and so this is a beautiful, this is a dangerous thing that runs in our academia right now, and everything is inverted because we cannot afford it. Because India is, as Professor Akhtar said, India is a country of agricultural intensive, labor intensive, food intensive, production intensive, and a green intensive economy. And we have systematically curtailed it, narrowed it, and now we are systematically destroying it. And now we are about to import some food things from other countries, and other things. Even Bangladesh is importing a bit of rice from other countries. I mean, look at this. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy.
Yes.
Bangladesh should be an exporter of rice to hundreds of countries in the world. Why? Because Bangladesh, though Muhammad Yunus Saab and Dr. Mahbul Haq was a knowledge partner of Professor Amartya Sen, they tried, but the government was not happy with their prescriptions. So there's a huge problem. There's a huge problem that runs in that country. There's a huge problem that runs in our country. So there has to be a fundamental shift, and this can only happen where there's an attitudinal change. The main problem is that, I mean, we cannot go like this, and because we have already destroyed so much of our resources. Our cities have become, look at Bombay and Kolkata. Look at Bombay and Kolkata. Charles Curry has a movie, 2 cities on Bombay. I think all of you have seen that
Yes.
movie. 2 cities, Charles Korea is not a planner also. Korea sab dikhaya that the city is actually split. It's dialectical. It's absolutely diabolical. I mean, if you put money in that city, majority of that money goes to one level, and the other level never gets it. Other level never gets it. So the whole city behaves like that. Look at Chennai, the way it has urbanized, and what water problem is there in Chennai right now. Chennai never had. If you enter the outskirts of Chennai, about 50-60 miles before that, there are huge watersheds on the coastlines. If you take Coromandel Express, you'll find those.
Yes.
And today, if you go to Pondicherry side, between Pondicherry and Chennai, there are huge watershed tracks. If you go towards Arunachalam, that place of Ramana Maharshi and others, there are huge watershed tracks. but nobody has actually understood them, studied them. How those watershed tracts over hundreds and thousands of years has been a common basin. It was not Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala. ऐसा कुछ नहीं था.
Water did not have administration.
It's not. It is a regional planning. It's a regional basin. And today we are fighting. Today we are fighting over states and boundaries, which I wanted to talk in my talk. That was my main pointer. Why we are failing on water planning. Why we are failing on water.
But somewhere in architecture planning, we have also as I can say custodians of the pedagogy. I can put all three of us there, and especially two of you. We are still struggling to teach water. I mean, I know from my own experience. In a 5 years course, there is no water subject. I mean, I got a chance to teach water first time in Gokul's school at Central University, Rajasthan, So even 2 credit, 1 credit course, we are not teaching water. And then the education of water is very, very much in silos. People like me also studied in 5 courses.
I'll tell you, Mansee ji, this is my last statement. I think we have already taken up a lot of. One of my dad's friend, my father was actually a student of School of Planning and Architecture. He was the first student of AP Kanvinde Saab. It's a Kanvinde time. At that time, he was a part-time lecturer. So his elder person was Professor Amitabh Sengupta, who designed a lot of cinema halls in Delhi and Chandigarh and all that. He was very famous. So once architect Sengupta came and that time I was learning in IIT Kharagpur. He told me, Joy, can you design a house? So I told him, a nice living room. He told me how best you can design a house. Then I did the driving planning. And then he asked me how better you can design a house. Then I did all the balcony, this, that, and he told me in front of my father, this is the problem with today's education. You have not designed the main thing in the house. This is the kitchen. Which is the water planning. The house must be designed based on the location of the kitchen first. How you come from the market with your, I just told that before. I mean, how that man goes, or how the water goes in, how it has a kitchen garden in the backyard, what orientation it has with the sun, that vastu, which is the Agni cone. The location of the kitchen is in the Agni cone because of the orientation of the sun in the morning kitchen light. So these are all solar architecture and water architecture. And today we think Vastu and all that, ye kya hai and all that. We don't read those because we don't have the time and patience to read those. Orientations, water.
Same applies to city.
Same
we are doing land use planning. We are
land
not
use
doing
planning, but we have no ideas about a solar planning. Akhtar Sahab was saying the city is growing in all directions. It cannot grow in all directions. You look at Mohenjo-daro's thing, you'll see the industries are in the northeast. You'll see the Mohenjo-daro is absolutely a Greek planning, 5,000 years before New York. And on the northeast is industries, and on the northwest is institutions, and on the southeast is all housing complexes. And on the southwest, there's hardly any development because that's Indus. It's all farmlands. So the entire land use planning of Indus Valley was more scientific, more water sensitive than the cities that we are designing today. That is Mohenjo-daro. 5,000, 6,000 years old.
It's very much ours to really learn from.
It is undivided India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. This is Indian wisdom.
I think with these points, these discussions can go on and on. Akhtar sir, if you have any last line, I will.
I think the last line should come from.
Or we will have to close this session, and I know we clear at least.
Maybe some shahiri from Akhtar sir, some doha.
Yeah, maybe something from him, or either coming from Quran, or maybe Rumi, or Kabir, or
somebody. Yeah.
Go ahead, and then we close because I will announce also.
No, not right now.
Okay, you have,
Sir, you have some water.
No poetry, no shairi.
Okay.
If Naik is still not convinced with the answers given by Professor Jayasen, if something is left behind, then I will take it. Only one line is there.
Please go ahead.
Problem oftenly I used to say, PhD में research की हत्या हो गई है. तो research की हत्या होना PhD में बहुत बड़ी बात है जो हो गई है, जो fact है. इसलिए जो message है, अगर आपको कुछ करना है, but I have said earlier also that you must have a self-esteem. It has to come out from your own insight, from your thought, and it should be in the context. Stop looking upon the others, especially looking upon the West.
Yes.
You will not reach to anywhere.
Exactly.
Only by your own exploration, your own wisdom, your own thought, your own context, you can solve all the problems. And as for your questions, because most of the question has been answered by Professor Sain, all the philosophical thought he has shared with you. And in his lecture also, there's a lot of philosophy, a lot of heritage was there, a lot of previous informations were there. I have just talked about the physical parameters of today, that is the management, how to manage the water. So I don't think there is any such issues which you have questioned or where you want to have your quest to be answered. Professor Sain has done all things. Only my message is to rely on yourself, rely on your being Indian, and we got everything, we can do everything.
Right.
If we stop looking upon the others, looking upon the West especially.
Right.
So that is the all.
Thank you so
Mansee.
much, Akhtar sir. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joycean sir. Gokul, do you have any last line? Because anyway, we are late, so we can enjoy the conversation. Do you want to add any last line?
Professor
It's
Singh is
really a
here.
good session. Like I got too much of knowledge from all the three of you guys. It's like
I think
You're
let's
on mute.
listen once to Professor Singh. I can see Professor
Yes.
Singh. One sentence from Professor Singh. Varanasi ka ek bachan.
जी, Professor Prabhat sir, कुछ बोलिए. I mean, he's also my mentor, so.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Namaste.
I'm just listening and enjoying. And Professor
Yes.
Joyce Sain and Professor Dr. Akhtar, and they are simply knowledgeable. I mean, they are treasure. So nice. I'm just enthralled.
He was also one of our speaker or talking about water education in higher studies. So, and I know him for a long time now. So I think we will bring the session to an end. I have to take that decision with a very heavy heart. I do not wish to, but please, because I know both of you so well, I just feel like continue talking to you, but we have to also have a time constraint and also not keeping you too long for the digital. Thank you all for joining us. I know there are people on live with us. We look forward to having you on March 2nd, where we are actually going back to some of our national policy, and the major policy which we are discussing on March 2nd is Atal Bhujal Yojana, and the title is Can It Give a New Lease of Life to the Groundwater in India? And we are discussing it in the background of that this year's World Water Day focus is on groundwater. So I'd like to thank again Professor Joycean and Professor S.M. Akhtar sir to really take out time for us and then really cut loose and discuss with us. Just relaxed. And I think it's because you both are together here. And I think we had a very good time with you. And along with that, I also like to thank Gokul for being so patiently listening to us, because he also had one semester of water with me, and still he is bold enough to listen to all of us as a young mind. So we have a hope when people like Gokul are still thinking of doing something on water works. So we will continue as Wednesdays for Water. This is for everybody who are listening to us and for others who are going to listen to these videos later on. We like to see you again Wednesdays and more Wednesdays to come. Please keep us along with you and your heart, because the water that flows in you also flows in us. From the entire team of Wednesdays for Water, we like to thank all of you. Please understand that if we cannot manage water, the least we can do to the water is not damage the water. This is my line and a pledge to water, that if I cannot manage, I should at least try not to damage it. So I hope you all will make some water pledge and keep joining for this free education program from us on Wednesdays for Water. We are soon completing 1 year, and then we will take the Wednesdays for Water 2, where we'll have more interesting sessions. We are coming up with water talkies, which will be basically screening water films. And then we are also coming up with water library, where we are wanting to do book reading on water. So we are planning to really go a little more and bring out the free literacy, because water education is short in the country. So thank you very much. And thanks all for joining. Namaste. Please take care of yourself, and we see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you, presenters, for joining us today and enlightening us with your wisdom. Also, thank you all the participants for joining us and making the session interactive. Besides walking and talking water, worries and wisdoms collectively, we see this as a platform to cross-connect and expand our network and explore possible collaborations. We are also making notes to publish both scientific and non-scientific work. Here is a glimpse of some of our writings. You may reach us through email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also look at our website www.w4w.in. We look forward to your suggestions and comments to make the series more meaningful and engaging. And meanwhile, we hope that you appreciate today's session. We represent Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Hyderabad, Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, Environmental Design Consultants, Ahmedabad, FluxGen Sustainable Technologies, Bangalore, Counterview, and we are supported by Wiki's Water Resources Council. We truly appreciate your support and encouragement in conducting this series, and we hope that you will stay tuned with us through our social media platforms and our website, and you will write to us at our email IDs.